Welcome to Build Your Own Adventure. If this is your first time watching, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about a trip we recently got back from. It's actually been 2 months ago, which I can't believe. But on that trip we drove over 5,100 miles and we took our 2022 Ford Super Duty F350 and we pulled our somewhere around 10,000 pound Grand Design Imagine. Today we're going to go over what kind of fuel mileage we got on the trip, and we're going to talk about diesel exhaust fluid. How much did we use? What kind of mileage did we get? And on top of all that, we're going to tell you what it cost to pull that gigantic beast all the way around the country, most of the way around the country. So stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoy it. Like I just said, we've got a 2022 Ford Super Duty. It is an F350. It does have the 6.7 Power Stroke diesel in it, and it has a 10-speed transmission. This truck has been amazing. We've had it 3 years. We've had no trouble out of it. It is basically stock as far as the drivetrain goes. We have added a few accessories. I will put all those down below in the description. They are basically appearance accessories. The only thing that we added since we had the truck that might add weight to the truck would be a gooseneck hitch and possibly a bed liner. Really not that much, but still it could affect your payload, so be aware of that. Before we left on the trip, we did the typical maintenance that you would do to any vehicle. We did an oil change. We used Schaefer's 5W40 and a Wix XP filter. This is what I use pretty much every time I change the oil, unless I can't find them. Along with the oil filter change, we did change the air filter. That's the first time I put an air filter in this truck. Back when we first bought the truck, I ran it through a CAT scale. It was just me. I filled the fuel tank full, and we came in at 8,280 pounds. So that was just me being in the truck. We had a small toolbox in the back, probably weighs around 50 pounds, and a full tank of fuel. And that was it. For the trip, in the bed of the truck, we loaded it down with all sorts of stuff. I would estimate that we were probably adding 500 pounds to the bed. Maybe more, maybe less, but it's pretty close to 500 pounds. So that could be added to the total weight of the truck. So you're looking at 8,700 pounds. Now we also have a family of 5, so 5 of us were there, so that's going to add some more weight. So you're losing payload every time you add people or you add things to the bed. So if you're going to go on a trip like this or any trip at all and tow a camper, don't forget your payload. It's way more important than towing capacity. The camper we towed is a 2024 Grand Design Imagine 3210BH. This thing is a beast. It's 37 feet long. It has a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,195 pounds. So we took this camper across the scales shortly after we got it. I had about half a tank of water in it at the time. My dad rode with me, so there were 2 passengers, and this is the weigh ticket from that. What we can take from this weigh ticket, we can take that gross weight rating, subtract the weight of the truck out, and the camper weighs around 9,760 pounds. When we started loading, we had to be very careful not to go over the weight rating for the camper, and we didn't weigh it again before we left, but I believe we were around 10,000 pounds, maybe a little over, but we're in that range. We've talked about the camper, we've talked about the truck. Now it's time to get to the good stuff. I know this is why you guys are watching. So let's go into geek mode and throw up a spreadsheet. So we filled our 48-gallon tank 16 times during this trip. We used over 498 gallons of diesel fuel. From the initial fill up to the final fill up, we averaged 10.3 miles per gallon. This is what the gauge on the truck said for our entire trip. It's off, but it's really not that bad. I mean, it's fairly close. As far as the truck readout, it was fairly accurate during the entire trip. I've found since owning this truck that when you tow, if you use a full tank of fuel, the gauge in the truck is a lot more accurate than if I'm just driving to work a couple times a week and go fill the truck up. Our worst fuel mileage was 7.92 miles per gallon, and our best was 13.18 miles per gallon. The 13 was in Moab, where we were driving the truck around without the camper quite a bit. So that's why that number is a little higher than everything else. However, on the way home, we got over 12 one day. I believe it was around 12 and a half. You can see it down there. And I was pretty impressed with that. But I think we had a tailwind, which was pretty much the opposite of the entire trip. When we got 7.92 miles per gallon, we were in Arizona, and we had a crazy headwind. Something I'd never seen from the truck when we were towing. The truck was pulling in 8th gear, which I have never seen. I honestly thought something was wrong. We pulled over to take a break, and when I could barely open my door because of the wind, I realized that the wind was blowing so hard the truck was having to stay in 8th gear just to tow it. Overall, it wasn't a bad experience. It was just surprising that we were getting that little fuel mileage. So obviously wind is the killer of towing. New Mexico is pretty bad as well, and it shows on the chart. All right, now we're getting to the good stuff. So how much did all of this diesel fuel cost? Well, thankfully, a couple years ago, one of my buddies told me about TSD Logistics. This is not an ad, I'm not sponsored, but they have a card that you can use to go through commercial truck lanes with your camper, and you get discounted diesel fuel. This was an absolute lifesaver on our trip. We saved $139.79. So our total cost, including DEF and diesel, was $1,765.23. Of course, most of that was diesel fuel, which came in at $1,705.10. That was after our discounted price for diesel when we got that. Our DEF fluid cost, which that's diesel exhaust fluid. If you're not familiar with newer diesel trucks, they have to have this crazy stuff in there. But the total cost for DEF was $60.13, and we got an average of 284.27 miles per gallon. Before I bought my diesel truck, I really wanted to know what kind of mileage I could expect out of it when towing. So when you're not towing, you just get tons and tons and tons of mileage out of your DEF fluid. But when you're towing, I think this is a good example, 284 miles per gallon. So you got 6 gallons on this truck. You can kind of use that as an example if you're looking at new diesels. Hopefully that helps. As far as savings, when we were filling up using the Open Roads card or the TSD card, whatever you want to call it, in Oklahoma we saved $26.42 on one fill up. That was awesome. And then the least amount of savings was in Page, Arizona, and this was at a Maverick station, which was new to me. I'd never seen one of those. Must be a West Coast thing. But we saved $1.83. From what we saw on our trip, if you go to a Love's or a TA travel center, those are the places that we saved the most. Not saying that you won't save more somewhere else, but that's just what we saw. There you have it. That is what it costs us to go on this trip as far as diesel fuel and diesel exhaust fluid. That's the mileage we got. What do you guys think? Do you think the truck did well? Were you expecting less? Were you expecting more? For me personally, I was hoping for 11. 10.3 is not bad. I'm good with that, especially once I got out there into those places that were extremely windy. Be sure to take your family somewhere, enjoy your family time, and please come check us out again. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time. Is that good? That's all I got. We're done. All right.